Local programming on KRWG Public Media made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
This is KRWG Public Media, TV, radio, online. News that matters. Now, across the Mesilla Valley and the borderland, the stories that shape our community. From the KRWG Broadcast Center at New Mexico State University, this is Newsmakers.
Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Anthony Moreno. On the program, we take a look at issues facing Las Cruces Public Schools. Middle schools in the district have implemented cell phone restrictions for students to help create a better learning environment. KRWG Public Media scholar Noah Race has more in this report.
If you visit a middle school campus in Las Cruces, you might be surprised by the lack of one item: cell phones. 2 years ago, middle schools across the district decided to stop letting students use phones even when they are not in class.
When the bell rings at 8:55 until 3:55, students are not allowed to have their cell phones.
Debbie Treviso is the principal at Vista Middle School. Since the district gives each middle school discretion on how to handle cell phones, Treviso says that she prohibits the phones even during times like lunch to create a better learning environment.
That really was the time where a lot of the discipline issues were happening, texting each other, recording things. But really, the kids are talking to each other now. They're playing kickball, basketball, volleyball. So a lot of the behaviors were happening because the cell phones were out.
Local middle schools are far from the first to try this out. So far, 15 states have enacted some sort of statewide cell phone ban, with many school districts implementing a variety of restrictions. Studies show that policies like this can boost student performance and reduce bullying.
So it was difficult to get the students to learn that no, you can't have it in your pocket.
Vista Language Arts teacher Kelly Ekstrom says that getting students to adjust to the new policy was a challenge, but the results speak for themselves.
It's a lot better. We don't have near the behaviors, not all the interaction on their social media at school, but we don't have a lot of the same problems we had.
Some other districts in New Mexico are also trying out this idea. Schools in Taos are experimenting with pouches that lock the phone away during the school day, and other districts are trying out similar policies to the one being tried in Las Cruces. While students are restricted from using their phone during school hours, they are still allowed to bring phones to school as long as they remain in their backpack.
Attention span is a lot better because they know they can't use their phone, they're not allowed. And if it's an emergency, they can ask, but they know that it's policy, they can't have it.
And in middle school, I love that they're not on their phones.
Nicole Waltermeyer has one child at Camino and another in high school. She says that this 2-year-old policy has made the transition easier for her child.
You know, she's made new friends during lunch. I think that's really their only time to socialize. And if they had access to their phones, I worry that they'd, be on their phones instead of actually socializing.
One concern that some parents have is the inevitability of plans changing throughout the school day. Shelter in places, lockdowns, the weather, and a variety of other factors can affect after-school activities or pickup. Walter Meyer says that this has been solved by the school taking the lead in communication.
We have had, instances where there was a shelter in place, and we didn't get that information from our kids, but the school let us know that they might be dismissed. That might affect dismissal. My daughter does have access to her phone as soon as the day ends, so we know that she's going to have it on as we're connecting at pickup.
In the last 2 years, school staff say they have seen less fights, bullying, and better attention span. While New Mexico is not implementing any statewide policies, there is talk of action from the federal government taking a step to limit cell phone uses in school in October. For KRWG Public Media, I'm Noah Race.
Joining us now to discuss student cell phone bans in middle schools and other issues within Las Cruces Public Schools is Teresa Tenorio, Board of Education President, who is serving her second term in District 4. Teresa, thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I want to start with that middle school cell phone ban. Can you share with us a little bit about what you're hearing from officials in middle schools about how this is working?
Well, we had some issues at the beginning of the school year and probably even last year where there's some online bullying and fighting going on that was being recorded on cell phones. So the teachers and the principals were saying that something needed to be done. Currently, as it stands, the middle schools and high schools and elementaries can choose how to handle that. And the middle schools decided to have a full ban on cell phone devices during school time. So the high schools, in comparison, have chosen to be a little bit more lenient on the timing of like what's happening during their school schedule. Like maybe lunchtime they can use their cells, or when there's quiet time during the class. But the middle school, what we've seen is a vast difference and changes in student behavior when they decided to ban the cell phones.
Obviously, a lot of concerns about student behavior. You bring that up, so I'd like to kind of dive into that a little bit. When we're talking about student behavior and cell phones, what are the major concerns that you're thinking about as board president when it comes to these issues?
Well, I mean, this is not a simple matter, and so a lot of things come into play. This fall, we also had a law firm come and approach the school board about joining a class action lawsuit on the social media platforms that prey on our students. So, and that's also, connected to their cell phone usage. Like the more that they're using these social media platforms, kind of getting addicted to them, that's less time they're using to socialize with their peers, less time that they're interacting with the real world. And then there was issues with fighting and bullying. So
And that's something that I think you bring that up, fighting and bullying. It's different now compared to it was perhaps 20 years ago, because you could go home at the end of the day, but with a cell phone device and all these apps and social media, it's almost like you can't really escape that sort of issue that students may be dealing with.
It seems more pervasive. It seems like it's harder you can't leave it in the classroom or leave it in the playground or wherever. It's something that's happening, like you said, on the internet. And those things don't easily go away. We have a Stop It app, which we encourage students and families to use to report any kind of cyberbullying or threats that are happening online. That's one of the ways. We also just recommend that they talk to an adult, a grown-up, to get on top of this. And part of having the cell phone ban is it limits the amount of time that the students, especially middle school students, have this phone in their hand where they can make poor decisions.
Yeah. How successful is that Stop It app? Do you have any insight into, is it being used, or is it something that you're actually getting some data on?
I think that it has been used, but not to the extent that maybe we would like for it. We kind of need to market it more and saturate public awareness on that it's there and that it can be used. I know that Gaston tried it for a little bit and chose not to because it allows anonymity, and people take it differently, like how they use that anonymity for good or for bad. But the Stop It app is one tool that we're using.
Now, the schools can choose how they implement these policies when it comes to the bans of the cell phone, but the district can also take action in a form that would be district-wide. Are there conversations happening right now with the board on this?
Not yet, but it's we have a policy on it's called electronic communications and devices for students. So that's the policy that we would be adding to our review calendar when we discuss different policies for amendments. It's going to be coming up. So currently, according to the old policy, everything's being done the way it is. Now, if the board decided to have some kind of district-wide ban and be very strict about it, then it would change what's currently being what's done at the high school level.
Now, you're a school board president, but you're also a parent.
True.
So it'd be interesting to get your take as a parent, perhaps, just on policies like this. What are some of the things that run through your mind as a parent?
I listen to parents and I understand kind of the anxiety that they have of needing to reach out to their student, especially like a high school or a middle school student who they're going different directions after school activities and trying to plan that type of stuff. And this is how people communicate nowadays. I think that's still possible to do that at lunchtime, at the beginning of the school day, at the end of the school day, at the end of your activity, without it disrupting your whole day, and having an agreement with those students that you don't need to be on your phone when you're bored in class. Like, that boring time is a productive time to be able to get to know your neighbor.
Do you think the pandemic perhaps played a role in cell phones being such and devices being such a big issue?
I think it's too hard to tease that one separate, to know which came first or which one was affecting the other one first. I think cell phones have done a pretty big effect on its own.
What about just socializing within the classroom or during the breaks or at lunch? Do we have any information on? I mean,
the cell phone's a crutch, right? Because it's hard to be social, and it's easier to just get on your phone and be busy. I know that when we first had students go back to school, and the teachers would talk and they would tell me the kids aren't the same, that they were isolated, they weren't socializing. That was the older kids. The younger kids were violent, aggressive, not knowing how to self-regulate. And then more recently, I've heard from other teachers, this is just by happenstance, that they would describe like the kids are doing so much better. And when I talk to especially like middle school principals, I was invited to do some walkthroughs for their instructional walks, and I noticed that the kids were friendly. Like, even to me, I'm a stranger, and I go into their class and I ask them questions, and they were open to talking to me. They were looking up. They were not, kind of withdrawn to themselves. And so I made that comment to the middle school, and they said, yeah, I think that's because we got rid of the cell phones, that they noticed the difference after that.
Interesting. You brought up bullying earlier. I'd like to kind of talk about that a little bit more. How big of an issue is bullying in Las Cruces Public Schools today?
I think bullying here is relatively the same as any other school district of this size, and it's unacceptable. Like, as a parent, I wouldn't want anyone's child to be bullied. I've experienced, I was a victim of bullying, and yet everything takes time to kind of correct, to find a new course, right? Because if kids are coming in and they have problems with regulating their emotions, then we need to figure out how to teach that, and we need to have professional learning for our teachers to do that, and have the time to do that, and have the funding to do that. And so we have that at several of our elementary schools. We need more, and I know that that we're working on that.
Do you think there's more awareness when it comes to bullying that's being offered to students in an educational format, to where they're more aware of what may be considered bullying or how to address it compared to maybe 30 years ago?
Well, I mean, they do have, at the elementary level, they have a counselor who is like a specials class that they take, and they learn these types of things. So they should be learning about bullying and peer pressure and, what to do, see something, say something. I think that at the elementary level is a good start. This social emotional learning is an excellent and much needed program that needs to be in every school. But it's not enough,
I see. I want to move on and talk about school safety and security. Mm-hmm. What are the steps that the school district has taken to really address these issues? Because we have had some instances where schools have been on lockdown. We've seen threats in different schools across the district and in neighboring districts as well. So can you share with us a little bit about the steps the district has taken to really address these issues?
Well, as a board member, I get a lot of my information as either a text message or an email or a phone call from the superintendent or one of his designees, and saying, okay, today we got this threat, or this happened, or at the end of the day, this is what happened. And so they keep us aware of incidences across the school district, whether it's a school or happen to a student off campus. I think that a lot of this stuff that happened recently with the threats, I find it to be so unfortunate that it was mostly pranks and kids not realizing the full implication of what their threat does, like how serious it is and how it's taken, that they can end up being in the juvenile detention center because of that. And so those are things that we need to communicate about. We haven't had any since the last ones that we had. I don't know if it was fall break that kind of threw some cold water on that, but I think it was also that a lot of students realized that the juvenile, that the law enforcement was involved, that we were taking it very seriously. And it takes a lot of resources, and it's very stressful for all the students, families, teachers that are in our schools that just want to be at school, that want to learn.
The district has taken steps to put school resource officers in the budget. How do you feel these resource officers are making a difference?
So New Mexico PED did allocate some extra funding that we used, and we also used funding from our own operations to make sure that every one of our middle schools and high schools has an SRO, and if needed has another SRO depending on what the need is. When it was first brought to the board, I think that there was some concern about, I think, what SROs, what they bring to a campus. And we've had some really, really good productive conversations at our board meetings where Joy Wiedela, which is the lieutenant at LCPD, and we've had another marshal from the Messia Marshals to describe to us what their work entails in being in the schools and what they're trying to achieve when working with students. So it's, to me, become a more broader, comprehensive perspective of, and an appreciation for SROs for what they do, the level of sense of security that they offer that school. And what we've noticed more recently is that they're bringing education to these children. Like if you're interested in, to engage with them. So there's a drone pattern, or the teacher will invite one of the officers to discuss, talk about drugs in the community, or what they know their field. So,
do you feel that these resource officers make these schools safer?
I think they're a good first response.
When it comes to security, what other measures are in place to really ensure that schools are secure? I'm bringing this up because it's obviously been an issue within our community, school safety, a lot of folks voicing their concerns about it. So I'd like to hear from you a little bit about what other steps the district is taking to address this. The district applied for a grant through the New Mexico PED, and I think it was I can't remember the name of the grant, but it was to purchase weapon detection systems. And another aspect of the grant was to be able to employ more behavioral health employees, like counselors, but they were separated, so we didn't get the money for behavioral health professionals. We got the money for the weapons detection systems, and not by choice, that's what they gave us. So we had a change in leadership in our operations department, and so it took a little while longer than we anticipated to kind of order these systems, but I believe every middle school and high school will have them. Some of the schools will have multiple sets because based on entry points and exit points of their schools. And yeah, they utilize some type of AI. Okay. Yeah. As an elected official, though, I know you have opinions about this, so it'd be great to hear how you feel about not having that behavioral health resource with that. Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, I just don't understand why they would offer it, and then you have, some people qualify for that and we didn't. I don't understand. I know that there's still a need in our district for more counselors. And just, I think nationally and statewide, there is a shortage.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm sure our audience is well aware of the shortage of behavioral health professionals in our region, and I definitely want to talk about that a little bit more. But first, I want to discuss the clear backpack policy that is in place within the district at events. Now, this is something we've seen at major sporting events and events in our region, but can you tell us a little bit about that policy and how it's being implemented?
Well, that came from the superintendent's office or somebody within admin. And I think it's a good start as far as having the community participate and what's the word? Be part of helping us make it a more safe community. We haven't gone to the extent of implementing this into the schools. I did ask about that at one of our meetings because we were talking about the weapons detection systems and talking about the other school districts in New Mexico that are implementing these systems, right? And I asked, have they given a thought? Are they starting to use clear plastic backpacks? And they said no. Then that there didn't seem to be an interest yet from those other school districts, in addition to already having weapons detection systems. But I just thought I'd ask. I think that's something that they would consider looking into, and so doing it at the big special events is a start.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that issue. I want to move on and talk about school-based health centers in the district. This is something the district obviously has made a big effort to share with the community and seems to be really excited about this issue. Can you tell us a little bit about these centers?
Well, we've had school-based health clinics for several years. The high schools had them first. And now as we are trying to expand and find community partners to see if we can get them at some of our middle schools or elementaries. And so it was started through the community schools partnership. That was the brainchild for this, and they were working with La Clínica de la Familia, and they've just been phenomenal in terms of like getting their own grant to get the furniture, to pay the staff. We paid for the portables, and now we have, I think, 3 or 4 additional school-based health clinics that are going to bring those resources to areas that were lacking in that, you know what I mean?
So with these clinics, I mean, what does it entail?
I mean, I think it'd be anything that you were going to receive from a regular pediatric clinic, in addition to like your one-stop one-stop visit for like if you're sick, if you need a physical for sports, if you're injured, if you're not feeling well mentally, like you're just feeling really low, they do offer behavioral health counseling.
Let's talk about that a little bit more. Obviously, a major issue in our region. There's been a lot of concern about having the infrastructure in place. Certainly, there's been investments made at the state level to address some of these things. But how can students connect with professionals if they are experiencing any behavioral health issues with these centers?
Well, I think every one of our schools has a counselor, like a mental health counselor or a social worker, but that it's usually they have they're backed up. They have so many that the waiting time might be too long based on what your needs are. So having that additional counselor through the school-based health clinic would be that added benefit, for a kid who just needs someone to talk to or doesn't understand, can't verbalize or put to words what they're feeling.
Is there any issues with providing enough counselors to meet the need?
I mean, what I know is that I've heard from students that there's like a waiting list. And I've heard from our counselors that national standard is that for every one counselor is for 250 students. And we don't even meet that. So
there's some challenges there.
Yeah.
What steps do you think the district is going to take and the board may take to address some of these issues?
I mean, I think we want to fully support our community schools, fully support these school-based health clinics to make sure that it's sustainable. We want these to last for a long time. I think if there's ways to find funding for more counselors, we will.
I want to move on and talk about redistricting. We just have like a minute left, but can you share with us a little bit about what steps are in place to address redistricting right now?
Well, I would recommend that you attend, like not you, but the public attend the town hall. We have 2 town halls left, one at Mayfield on November 20th, one at the central office on December 5th. That one will be in Spanish. And we will have our board meeting tomorrow that will discuss it. I would like the public to get as much information as possible about how we are redistricting certain parts of the school district in order to right size and balance the enrollments across our schools.
With that issue, do you have some concerns that the districts are going to be really implemented the redistricting in a fair and balanced way? What are your major concerns going into this process?
I mean, I think it's just, as an emotional person or like a human being, you know that it's going to affect people, affect families. And some families might be excited for the change if their household happens to live within a boundary that's being recommended to be part of a different school boundary, right? Like you would go to one elementary, now we're asking you to go to the other elementary. Some people are very tied to their high school, and it might be a really big transition to have to consider moving to another high school.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of concerns there. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. Teresa Tenorio, School Board President with Las Cruces Public Schools, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we want to thank you for joining us for this week's episode. Remember, you can always keep updated with news anytime at krwg.org, where you can also find past episodes of Newsmakers and other programs from KRWG Public Media. I'm Anthony Moreno. We'll see you next time.